Hello, hello, hello. And we are live here. We're live here on Facebook. And we are live on Spreaker. Hello, Spreaker. You've got your Omiinka 8. And on Facebook, you got your Omiinka 7. How are you today? And we are discussing the topic of, so you decided to go and consult a reader. Now what? Now, this is a family circle. I want you to know that. And we have been talking about those people out there on Facebook and the social media. Let me make sure I got my plugs on here. Because if I don't have my plugs on, it might not. Uh-oh. Okay, let me go back. Okay, let me go back. We're still on the line here, Spreaker. We're trying to get you plugged in. You notice you weren't plugged in. And we're going to start again. Okay, let me see how we can start this again. Okay, we're going to start this again, ladies and gentlemen, if you don't mind. Okay, I'm going to type this in here. So, you have okay, just a minute here. Okay. Okay, now here we are. We're back online again. And for the benefit of those who are following us on Spreaker, I would like to play one of my audio tapes. Hold tight.
No,
We're going to play that I Won't Settle.
Read by the author, Sherelle.
Now, to Facebook friends, I'd like to say hello. Thank you very much. And our topic is, so you've decided to consult a reader. Now what? Now, I started part one of this discussion talking about people who are allowing psychics and readers to enter their front door when they don't have a welcome mat. We have to be very, very careful when consulting readers and how we select those readers and how we utilize researching their background. So one of the things I want to say is that most of us don't inquire about the person's background. We go right in and we have the reading done without consulting anything about who this person is. First of all, I want to tell you that
Now that
you're
after
your
all the
own best
lessons that
reader.
I've been taught,
So I've been trying
the
to
lessons
tell
and how
the
hands can
listening
become
audience that I
tied,
wanted to
making an
teach
organization
individuals how to
result
do
to
their
losing
own
their pride,
consulting,
conspiring to
because
crime, working
you
up plans
have the
like this
closest
can only get
information
you
about your
time.
DNA
Plotting
and in your
schemes to lay
caustic
hold and
record.
blame
No one has
will only
any
get
more
you caught up
information
into
than you
the
have.
heat of the
And
flame,
beside
while
that,
screaming
we have
out, "It's a
hijackers out
low-down,
here,
dirty
we
shame.
have charlatans,
No, I
we
won't
have
settle.
pirates
Nor will
who
I
are
be brought.
seeking
Not after
to
all the
enter into the
lessons
caustic
that I
records
have
of
been
other
taught.
people who might
Lessons of
have
how
a better
time
future
can be
than their own,
recaptured,
and they
nor
might
can
want
it
to
be
hijack
replaced with money.
your
It could
future
never be
history.
erased.
And how
To
can
the
that be
human
done?
race,
In just a
it's
minute, I'm going to
disgrace
tell you.
and such
But
a
it's very
waste.
vital that
No,
you
I
know
won't
I don't
settle.
solicit
Nor will I be
for
brought.
individuals, for
Not after all
practitioners
the
to do their
lessons that I
reading.
have been taught.
I often tell
Lessons
them
in
I will
lies
show
and
you
how
how to
people
do your
use
own
them to
reading
imprise.
because you're
Those
your
who
own
invest in
best
them
DNA
can
reader.
make them thrive
And I couldn't come
survive
close
and
to
somehow
knowing who
stay
you are
alive.
any better than
The
you
real
are.
lesson
So
is
I
first you
often
receive
tell
the
people
lesson,
as a
then you
healer,
get the teaching,
when people are
and
sick
somewhere in
and
between
are in
there
need
is
of
a preaching.
healing, that's
I
when
don't
you
want to
might want to
leave
make
you
some
with the
recommendations. But as
impression
far
that
as
I've
doing the
settled,
reading,
nor
that
that
has
I've
to
been
be
brought
solely left
and
up to the
forgotten
individual.
all
You have
the
a lot of
lessons
people out
that
here
I have
that are
been
coming
taught.
up. And the way they're coming up is through the social media and making money off innocent people and holding them hostage while getting their personal information, feeding them information they want to hear, and holding them financially hostage. And when they do that, they have a hold of you. And if they can see into your future and see that you're about to come into some money or about to come into an inheritance, they will then tell you everything you think you want to hear just to hold on to you. But is that a good, healthy procedure? No. Mothers, you need to learn how to do reading on your loved ones, your family members, your children, and yourself. That way you keep it all in the family, then it's more perspective and relevant, because what you're going to say about those loved ones, you don't need any deck of cards to read. You can read these people by virtue of knowing their caustic records and being connected to their caustic records. So therefore, you don't need a deck of cards to read them. You're reading their aura. And a mediumtist is somebody that needs a medium to read from. And if you're truly a reader, you don't need a medium to read from. You can read the natural auras. Now, what I've been seeing is a large amount of people that are working on the dark side. And what I mean by that is that these people that are working on the dark side, they are not actually coming in from the Yoruba, from the perspective of icon, the Kemetic. They are actually involving themselves into very, very dangerous things, such as blood offerings and offerings of satanic things. And we have to be very, very careful that we steer away from those particular things, because you might find yourself tied up in occultic practices. So when you are of the mind that you have good intentions, when you're seeking out a reader, you seek out a reader that has a balanced life, that has a healthy life, a prosperous and abundant life, who is not seeking to take financial gain from you. A lot of readers are living by collecting donations and funds. I've never taken a dime for a reading in all the 20-some years I've been a priestess. I've never solicited my gifts to collect money, because that must not be why you work in this profession. It must be the fact that you are basically seeing someone that is in dire need and want to reach out to help them. But we have a number of people that are hijackers, and they are literally looking to get into your caustic record, know a little bit about your background, who you are, tell you what you think you want to hear, and then make you think that you need them as a bellhop. And then you will hold on to them for your every question about your life. Well, sit down with yourself. Start meditating and getting to know thy own self position. And as you get to know your own self, You learn about the things about yourself, and you reach back into your Cosmic record for your own information. Don't let anybody read you. When you first start meditating, you begin to read yourself and those loved ones around you. Don't let anybody run in and out of your life, especially a man who's claiming to read you. Now he's got a hold of your personal life and of your financial life and your spiritual life and your love life. That could be very dangerous. You can take on something that you can't get rid of. So I wanted people to know that there's too many charlatans talking about they bought a deck of cards, now they're a reader. What about your prayer life? Because it must all start with the prayer life. Do you have a prayer life? Are you spending time with God? Are you consulting your higher self for your solution? Are you just depending on the cards? Because if you're using a crystal ball and depending on the cards, then you won't be correct, because God has to enter into this reading somewhere along the line, and you cannot solely be dependent on a mediumtist of a deck of cards. Now, for those who are out there, okay, have I started? Okay, I guess I wasn't even started live on there. For those who are out there now, hello. I've just been preaching to the benches here, and I thought YouTube, Spreaker was on, but not Facebook. Hello, Facebook friends. Thank you so much. And our topic is talking about those charlatans and those pretend readers out there who are trying to hijack individuals for their money and for their time and commitment. You have to be very careful that you first become your own best reader. Start reading your children. And you read them anyway like a book. And you know when they're lying. So why do you need a deck of cards to tell you that? You have to be very, very careful that you spend a lot of time in your own Cosmic records. And when looking in your own Cosmic record, you will see some things that you didn't even know about your children. Then you can tell them. And don't let anyone get into your finance. They're looking to hijack people's finance. They're looking to get into any type of inheritance that you might have coming, so they can get a tap into your credit card and get a leash on your credit card, and they're constantly tapping your credit card while they feed you garbage you already know about yourself. How much do you need to know about yourself that you're going to pay somebody to tell you about yourself? You can say, I have an aha moment every time I look in the mirror at myself, because you spend time with yourself and you get to know yourself. It has nothing to do with the psychic coming on board, knowing all this information because she knows your birthday. Come on now. If you sit with your friends long enough, you're going to figure them out. You're going to learn what is really going on with them. And then you'll soon realize who they really are. The same way you could do that for yourself. Don't be anybody's fool. Don't have welcome on your doormat saying anybody who wants to come in, you welcome them in. No, you can be the only one. Hello there, Riot. Hello there, Omar. You can be the only one that welcome that person in. And you don't have to allow them into your house, because they might be coming to hijack you and hijack you of your energy, because now they got you attached to them and you're listening to every word they say. Every psychic and any psychic cannot know more about you than yourself. Learn to sit with yourself, and you'll begin to be able to read yourself and your loved ones and children. I often tell people I don't give personal readings to anyone. I only give readings to my children, my loved ones, and those that are in my circle of friends. Because it is very dangerous when you start giving someone a reading and they start getting dependent upon what you say and holding you accountable. You have to remember, on these airways, people are charlatans, and they are trying to depict themselves as an expert and a specialist. You're the only expert of your own self. And don't let anyone tell you any different, because when you start thinking, oh, they know more than me than about myself, the Holy Spirit gave them something. Well, the Holy Spirit can give you something too. But here's a little information from Omi. The first thing that you are doing when you're trying to get connected back to your DNA is spending quiet time with yourself, listening to what God has to say about you, and being able to use the universal teachings of all the cardinal directions, understanding you have to do some reading. And today I'd like to share some books with you, some of the books that I started with that helped me along the way. And this is one that I always depend on, and it is The Art of Divination, the practice from around the world. Sometimes I like to switch up when I do my family's readings. I like to switch up on the various different divinations from around the world, and I like to utilize them. It is an excellent book. It is by Dieter Blue, and I've talked to you about this book before several times. It is one of my go-to books. Then I also have a great book that I rely on called The Anatomy of the Spirit by Caroline Myss. By Caroline Myss. And it's the 7 stages of power and healing. Now guess what? I found most of this information in the African teachings and tradition. And what she's saying lines right up with the African traditions. And it's very good to have a source that you pull from and that you have your own library. Don't let any psychic come in giving you all her books to purchase. Now you're overloaded with all her books. Try looking for some of those books on the secondhand shelf or on discount table. Don't always spend over $50 on books, because you'll find yourself spending so much money on books that you're not reading on a regular basis, and you're overloaded financially. Now, here's one of my go-to books for African studies, and it's called Youu. And this is by Dr. Marimba Ani Youu. And it is an African-centered critique of European cultural thoughts and behavior. So this will give you an idea of how Europeans think, where they got their philosophy from. It helps you to understand our Ma'afa, what we went through during slavery. Now, these are just 3 books. I don't want to overload you with a lot of books, but those are books you can get to put in your library, because now you're going to be the master of your own ship. You're not going to let anybody walk in the door from the dark side and start reading your hand, maybe your palm, or start reading from the cards that they cut, the tarot cards. No, you're not having it anymore, because see, you might be dealing with somebody that's been a reject, and basically somebody who's been a charlatan and a hijacker, and you wouldn't know it. If they're having physical problems financially, if they've gone through problems with their intimacy and love life, if they're physically and morally broken down and need attention themselves, be very careful, because they're not ready to help you with anything until they go and help themselves. So you have to be very careful that these people are not just trying to make a quick dollar. And when they first come to you about how much can you pay, and they always focus in on money before they can give you a reading, you know they're not for you. Then go out and do your own reading. I guarantee you it will come close enough so you can see exactly what you need in your life. If you sit with yourself long enough, you will begin to see those things that are lacking. But on this information highway out here, we have a lot of people who are telling your business. And through the HIPAA laws, you must be able to take a client and swear upon the fact that you will leave that person whole. You will not damage them by taking their personal information, exploiting it on the information highway. You can attack these people with the HIPAA laws. The HIPAA laws protect you from anyone going into your medical records to disperse that information. You should not allow that. And you got a lot of people that put on these fancy looks, they put on these fancy wigs, and every time you look at them, they're a different creature, and they come across as if they're high-class psychics. Well, why do you need a high-class psychic when you can go inwardly? All your answers and solutions come from inwardly anyway. There's nothing that's on the outside that you're going to find out about yourself. Everything exists on the inside. Hold tight. I'm going to take some water. Let's go to station identification.
Voices Out of Zion.
Voices Out of Zion. They'll be hearing on Spreaker. Now, once again, Facebook, you have your Omiinka 7. I am a clairvoyant reader. I do not do readings for anyone but my immediate family. I have been reading my family since the time Hector was a pup. And I've been pretty much on the money. I do not take credit for reading anyone outside my family. It is a dangerous responsibility that you take on and that your insurance couldn't possibly cover. And all these people that are so quick to want to take on clients, you can still be sued regardless if you got insurance or not. If you have insurance, you're more likely to be sued because people want to put you in a position where they want to say, but you said, and then they want to go and get their lawyer and they want to bring allegations against you when you're only trying to help them. I want to warn somebody that it's not worth it for those piddlywinks that you will be earning from being a consultant for that person. Act neutral. Show that person. Give that person the tools that they need. Direct that person, but do not take on the responsibility of being a practitioner to that person and being a doctor to that person, because that's a heavy, heavy load, a lot of responsibility that your good may be spoken of evil. And these highways are swamped with so-called mediumtists, impact, and also people that are working the dark side. They can't tell you which group they've had their training from, nor who initiated them. The first question you ask is, who initiated you? If they cannot tell you who initiated them, who's their mentor, then you need to let that person alone. And don't let them say, I don't need anyone to initiate me. Oh, yes, they do. Even the finest of the finest have to be at least mentored by somebody or self-initiated by someone. But you don't take on these people without a background check because you don't know anything about them. You must understand that there's Keem.com that you can go and do a background check on those psychics and those mediumtists who are reading. You can get information about who they are. They must post that information. Now, if you see they're out there gorging up a lot of money and that it's all about money for them in order for them to give you direction, then just listen to them for a while and see where their life is going. See how much financial gain they've had in their life. See how much prosperity and abundance they've had in their life. If they're overweight, sick, and look like they are in need of an overhaul themselves, then you step away until they practice what they preach. Because if they're not utilizing this on themselves to give you paint a picture of you, who they are, so you can see who are these people. Are they healthy? Are they underweight? Are they balanced? Are they living what they preach? But because if they're not, then you don't want any part of their life. You want to wait until they go get healed and demonstrate to you that they can be all that they can be before they ask you to put down money on behalf of their advancement. Because what you're doing is advancing these people financially. And once they get you caught in the jaws of the shark, they won't let you go. Once they get your credit card and they're constantly billing you just for that little talk that you just had last night, and in the morning you're going to have another little talk, and you're not getting anywhere with your lifestyle. You must sit down, pattern out what are the things you want to change in your life, and make some real monetary decisions of what you're going to do to make changes in your life that are visible, that you can see. Because if you don't, you'll find yourself just repetitiously going around on a merry-go circle, just going around. Now, I often tell people, I see a lot of women on this airway who are professing to know everything with these cards. My question is, what about their spiritual life? Which spiritual groups are they connected to? How often do they pray? And do they have sessions where they bring women together to call for the moaning women to bring down the spirits? How powerful are they in getting the ear of the king? Are they able to get in contact with God when they need to get a prayer through? Do they know how to tarry for the Holy Spirit? And are they able to get together and sit in on behalf of a sick loved one or someone who is about to perish? Can they call them back into being? If they were scheduled to check out on one day, can they consult with Oromala to ask Oromala to alter the day of death? Do they have that kind of power? Now, come on now. I want to know if they got that kind of power, then they're truly, truly connected to maybe a practitioner of Ifa or a practitioner of being a spiritualist. But if they don't have any of those powers and you are desperate because you need to get an answer from God, then you need to fall on your face and fast and pray. And I do mean fast and pray till you get to hear from God. Because that's all they can do is fast before God to give them an answer. And if they are leaving portals open when they get through dealing with each client and they don't know how to close up those portals, then they're leaving those portals open and that same spirit is upon them and they're carrying it from one client to the next. You have to be very careful. When you do a reading, there is something called an Youu, which is what we call a reading for the African Yoruba readings. It's called an Youu. It's a marking of a symbol of a sign that we do oracle readings for, and these are poetry readings that we read. Now, in that Youu, it tells the person the problem, and usually they give the problem first. And the problem is given to match up with what's going on in that person's life. And you read several of those poems and you strike several markings on the ground until you get as close as you can to the problem in that person's life. But after you've read that oracle and the Youu, you cast oracles by throwing the actual E-Kings or E-Ting chains or De La Goo cowrie shells. And then you have to do a sacrifice, because now that the Spirit has given you a solution to your problem and you've opened that door up and asked them to tell you what is the problem, how do you solve it, it then tells you how to solve it, and it tells you you must make a sacrifice. And that sacrifice can be something to sacrifice a plate of food. It could be a sacrifice of a foul animal or chicken, something that you might have to shed for the remission of sin, shed the blood for the remission of sin. Never human sacrifice. But if you're dealing with a lot of people on the outside that are not really spiritualists, they may not just be doing fowls and animals. They may be into satanic things. So you have to be very careful. You are not hooked up with a reader that's in something satanic. Okay? And anytime they bring you something satanic, you have to get away from it. People don't have good character. And we look for something called Iwa Pelu, good character and good conduct. You must look into their background. Are they a person of good faith? Do they keep the peace? Are they into it with every other person? Is there strife in their life? Are they coming with a lot of heavy baggages? If they are, excuse yourself from getting a reading from them, because they're carrying with them the problems of the daily day hustle that you don't need. You must understand when they do this reading, there's a sacrifice that has to be made. And they must know how to carry out this sacrifice. And it only can be done by the Baba Law. And the Baba Law is the one that carries out this sacrifice so that this particular reading can be sealed and paid for. You pay for it with the sacrifice, whether it be through offering up fruit, food, or fowls, or chickens, or birds. You must give an offering to the ancestors. And then you close that door. But only the Baba Law knows how to give this offering, and he must tell you what the offering is, and you prepare those things that he needs, and then you close that door back, and that portal is not to be open. But if you don't know what you're doing, and you're doing divination, if you're reading cards, and now you've given this person the solution to their problem, and you have not made a sacrifice, and you've left that door open, that's where the danger lies for those novices who are doing readings for you. Do not let somebody do a reading for you without doing a sacrifice, because our ancestors inhabit our praises and our sacrifice. They want to balance off the earth with the sacrifice for getting you off the hook. And if you do not have a reader that knows what they're doing to do a sacrifice, refrain from doing that particular reading, because it could come back very bad on you and for you. Because you must understand, you open up the portals of the spiritual doors, and they must be closed back. Okay? Because when the Baba Law does a reading, he will do a reading to determine what type of sacrifice you must make. He will tell you the things that you need to go out and purchase in order to properly do a sacrifice. He will perform that sacrifice for you. But if sacrifice is not performed, you will be damaged, because whatever your answer was to your riddle will be reversed, because you did not follow through on completing the sacrifice and you didn't close the portal. That's what you need to know before you run out here and get anyone to do a reading for you. This is just a little note from Omi. It is a protective side that you must see. Balance must be in order. In duality, balance must exist. When anytime you grant anything you request anything from the spirit, you must make sure that you have a balance in this situation. How are we doing here? Who is this? Dr. Kevin and John H. How are you? Let's see who else is in here. Thank you so much for joining me on this afternoon. We're talking about, so you've decided to consult a reader. Now what? When you decide to consult someone to do oracle readings for you, you must understand portals have to be open, and duality must have to be performed, and sacrifice has to be performed, because whatever you get from the spirit, you must pay for it. And because the ancient ancestors brought oxen, cattle for their blood sacrifice, our spirit still requests blood sacrifice, but not human sacrifice. Anytime someone tells you they're getting ready to do a human sacrifice, you get as far as you can away from them, because they are Satanists. They are not spiritualists. They're dealing with the dark side. So you have to know what you're doing when you go in to see these particular oracle readers or psychic. But it's very vital that we get an understanding of what African religion is, because they're tapping into our ancestors. When you're talking to somebody outside of your ancestral pool, they may not even be able to tap into your Cosmic records because they don't have access to them. When you need a reading on something very serious like a life or death situation, then you go to somebody that's responsible and experienced. You don't go to a novice. And there are plenty of novices out here on the Facebook that are leading people the wrong way. I will not give a reading on these airways because it incorporates having a Bible law. After you've done the reading, it tells you to consult a Bible law to get a final decision so that they can tell you what the airball is. The airball is a sacrifice that you must do. You cannot go to the Bible law and you cannot see Youu without paying and without giving sacrifice. And the sacrifice is in order. If you have someone that's just using the tarot cards and they're not paying Youu and giving sacrifice, that reading is incomplete. I repeat, if you have someone that is claiming that they're a psychic or that they're a reader and they can read you through the deck of cards, they must perform an airball after the reading. And they must complete that airball with the sacrifice, whether it be to bring flowers to the altar, bring a plate of food to the altar, go out to the ocean and leave an offering, whether it be to kill a calf, whether it be to kill a calf and eat it, to kill a goat and eat it. There's nothing ever wasted. So these animals are not sacrificed in vain. They're usually eaten as a feast. Now, where there's much sin that needs to be forgiven and alleviated, then that would call for the shedding of blood of some animal. Never a human sacrifice. If anyone's telling you they're into human sacrifice, you get away from them. They're into satanic things. Hold tight. Excuse me. It's very important that we should understand on these airways there are more supposedly psychic reading mediumtists than ever before. You must check them out. Just who are they? And are they a friend of the brethren? Do they love the brethren so much that they're out here to give us insight for our life? Are they doing this for a business and to make money? If you find out they're doing it for a business and to make money, then you get away from them because you will become a cash cow for them. And they will continue to seep off of you. And once they tap into some of your loved one to find out more about you, what do you like to do? What kind of bank account do you have? And are going to become an inheritance? And are you up for a raise? And if they think you got an inheritance coming, they will latch onto you just like a cypress, just like a viper. Somebody that can zap all of the money out of your bank account as you come into your inheritance. You have to be very careful because there's so many women out here that are gold diggers and they're looking to come into an inheritance. And so are some of the men. They get involved with the women sexually and then they want to become their lovers. And they get jealous and don't want these women that are their clients to have male friends. Because if they do, they run them out of their bedroom with all kinds of spells. Be careful for all of that. This particular oracle reading was created to help you to look inside the Cosmic records, to see into the lives of your loved one and into the lives of yourself, to help you foresee and forecast what is up against the road, what is waiting for you ahead. How can you circumvent this particular death? What is it that you could do to alter the day and time of death? Can you change your lifestyle? Can you begin to make a change for the better? But you certainly cannot just get this skillful gift just because you want to know if your boyfriend's sleeping with another girl, or just because you want to do damage to your boy's girl and hurt her. All these kind of things, we got to be very careful that we're not seeking the spirit to utilize faulty decisions like this. We have to be very careful that if we use the spirit in the wrong way, it will come back to haunt us. And above all things, close the portal when you're done. If somebody is truly a reader, they are going to clear the air, clear the field, so they can have a clear way of hearing from the Spirit. But if they walk in there and they don't do a prayer, they don't say, pour libation to the east, pour libation to the south, pour libation to the north and the west. What you're doing is clearing the airway so you have the ability to enter into the Spirit. If they're just walking in there and they have not fallen on their face in prayer and asked God to give them the vision for the future, for the end time, allow them to see into the Cosmic record. But when we do that and open up the way, we must also close those portals so that they are not open to further seep into that individual life. So we close that portal. And like I told you, when you do the sacrifice, you must, when you do the reading, you must have a sacrifice. And you must call on the spirits to ask them, what sacrifice is suitable? What sacrifice shall we do? What do I need to tell the client they must do in order to close this deal and to give a sacrifice? Then that person must start the work of going out, getting all those obstacles and things that is required from God to do the sacrifice. That's when the deal is sealed. And if you don't know how to do an actual reading based on that, you are doing a faulty reading and you're leaving the doors open and all kinds of spirits can come at you and affect you. So even those that are doing these readings must be very careful that they're not leaving the doors open to haunt themselves. Now, I'm saying this to somebody because about 2 weeks ago, I had to do a session to talk to people who are novice out in the profession to make sure they have an actual mentor. Make sure that they've been called. Make sure that they didn't just send themselves. Because there's many ways we come into the position of being an oracle reader. And sometimes it's through lineage. Sometimes we want to go on our own. And sometimes we've actually been called into the profession. I don't know what this doing. And sometimes we've actually been called into the profession. But it's very vital that we know, let's see here. Okay. We're back, Facebook. We lost a little power there for a minute. What I was saying is that it's very vital that we get an unction from God that we've been called into the priesthood or the priestesshood. It's an inner witness, just like we would get if we were called to the ministry. When I first went into the evangelistic ministry, I had a calling into the ministry while I was in grad school. And I didn't think it would be possible because I was spending all this time writing my thesis and working on my thesis, but the Holy Spirit wouldn't let me alone. It kept ministering to me that I had a covenant with God to come into the ministry, and both my uncles had already ordained me to come into the ministry. And they stayed on me, and it was so heavy on me that while in grad school, I had to announce that I was also going to go to theology school one night a week, which was a lot of work as well during that 1 4-hour night. But I did it simultaneously while I was in grad school, and it turned out okay because I learned how to study. But that was my calling and unction to come into the ministry, to learn how to marry, bury, and baptize. I did not feel that I was getting a true understanding of how the Africans are seen in the Bible. They left out African religion altogether. I really was stunned by that when I discovered that African religion would not be discussed in our theology program. I finished up with the schooling, and upon me finishing my schooling, I had someone who actually came and got me and brought me into the African teaching of Kemetic teaching, Yoruba teaching, and said that I had a calling on my head and that God had called me into the Yoruba faith. And that's when I started my journey, my second journey of additional 5 more years into African theologian teaching. So some of us can have an actual, we could be brought up in the birth line. I wasn't. I had a calling, and someone came and got me to the ministry. So what I'm saying is that, excuse me,